On this episode of AVWeek, CTS prep at ISE. InfoComm is expanding more into the international and trying to get more CTSs outside of North America. Speaking of the CTS, we also talk about the best ways to renew your CTS, and does it matter if your AV components are made in your home country? All that and more next on AVWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AVWeek is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Peerless AV. This is AVWeek, episode 274, recorded Friday, November 25th, 2016. InfoComm renews the international.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Happy post-Thanksgiving for those in the States, and for those handful of you Canadians who celebrate Thanksgiving again, even though you had it in October. For the rest of the world, happy Friday. With us this week to talk about everything audio-visual news and a very interesting story that just dropped in my lap we're going to have some fun with. First and foremost, the maven of AVNation, the divaness herself, AVDawn, for Dawn Meade from Net AV. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, thanks. How about yourself?
I am full of piss and vinegar and tryptophan, so we're going to have fun today. Also with us, the only guy I know that flies more than Dave Labuscus. His name is Mike Braithwaite. He works for Clear One. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. Thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to the fight.
What undisclosed location are you going to next week now?
United Arab Emirates and then Saudi Arabia.
Good night. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to call him the Joker to my Batman, but I'm no Batman. His name is Josh Srago. He is the editor-in-chief of AVNation, also is a fabulous consultant for Teecom. Welcome, sir.
You could just call me your Riddler. I mean, that's fine, too.
Okay, you're my Riddler. I like that one.
There we go.
All right. All right, up first, guys. We have, in about, good Lord, 2 months now. And I say good Lord 2 months now because I'm kind of the guy that coordinates all of our travel and everything for AVNation. We've got ISE coming up. Holy crap, because I've got to start booking some flights. But coming up, first full week actually second full week of February. Bunch of us are going over to Amsterdam. Mr. Braithwaite will be over there. It's become actually one of the things that we do, one of the three shows that we cover, that is one of my favorites because it is a combination of InfoComm and Cedia. It not only literally but figuratively as well. Literally in the fact that Cedia and InfoComm own half of the show. But it is a nice cross-section of residential and commercial AV. One of the things that InfoComm is doing this year is they're doing some CTS prep testing at ISE. What that means is that for folks that they're trying to reach out to in the European and the Middle East market, they're trying to, grab them along and help them get their CTS by doing some of this testing. Srago, I'm going to start with you on this simply because I don't know, you're on the committee, so that helps. This outreach that InfoComm is doing outside of, let's say, North America, is it helping? Is it getting what InfoComm wants, or is it, are we kind of still spinning our wheels on this?
This outreach is specifically due to the fact that in meetings that have taken place over the last couple of years at ISE that I know certain individuals have sat in on, the comments coming back from non-American InfoComm areas is they feel underrepresented in the CTS because the CTS guidelines don't represent their concerns. They're very, very Americanized. It's all 120 volt power. It's all 70 volt audio. They're not focusing on how they do things. So the international presence of the CTS is a modest fraction of those that are having a CTS. So these efforts are being doubled to try and make that international part of InfoComm International much more catered to, much more represented. They're trying to bring these people into the fold. And it's a noble effort, because if we're going to be an international organization, or if we're going to have an international organization representing our international community, it has to be an international organization representing our international community. So this is all, there have been ongoing talks and meetings over there for a while. The people over there have been voicing their concerns as to how the CTS doesn't represent them. And now InfoComm is doing things that are trying to show that effort and double that effort in order to increase that membership and in order to support that membership over there. I mean, the United States is still the most represented portion of InfoComm, and expanding internationally, starting in one of the other top 2 markets as it goes in terms of just where money currently is, or where money traditionally has been, is the most logical thing to do next. So that's why it makes sense for them to be supporting it in this way and really pushing this effort to try and bring more people into the certification program overseas.
Dawn, as somebody who's had their CTS for quite a long time, does this make sense to you to get more international? To, as Josh pointed out, the fact that a lot of the prep courses, a lot of the test itself, does tend to lean more North American.
I mean, I think the outreach effort is a wonderful thing, and I think the growth of the CTS program is a wonderful thing. They may want to look at, CTS international version for the folks outside the U.S., because you're right, the questions are very U.S., North America centric. But all right, I got a card this year from InfoComm. Apparently, I've been a CTS for 14 years now. I don't feel that old, but since when I got my CTS 14 years ago, there was a very small pool of people with a CTS, and it didn't really mean anything. You could take it online. People would have their coworker, their employee, take the test for them. I'm not pointing fingers at a certain former boss, but there were. It has become a more credible credential in the years since, with the prometric testing and the more stringent requirements to get your CTS. But over that time period, not only has it become more stringent and more valuable as a certification, it's also gotten some street cred. When we first got it, it was like, oh, CTS, big deal, whatever. What does that even mean? Nothing. So who cares? Now I see it on government bids. I see it on minimum requirements to even think about bidding on a project, let alone winning a project. I see it in more and more places that make it a valuable certification to hold. And I think by reaching out beyond our borders, we're absolutely going to increase the value of that, because it's a global economy, regardless of who president might be. And we're going to be doing business with folks overseas. And if I'm doing a project with one of my customers and we're on a base in the UK or Germany or South America or, wherever, we're going to want people local. We're not going to be able to fly our whole team there, obviously, but we're going to want people that are local, that we know understand what we're requiring of them as installers, as programmers, etc. We're going to want local talent. And the quickest way to verify someone's talent locally is, hey, have you got your CTS? Have you got your this manufacturer certification? Have you got that manufacturer certification? Great. You're what we need. And so I think that shorthand is more and more important. And the fact that they're reaching out to the European market and beyond to increase that number is fantastic. And I also want to commend InfoComm, not just on the CTS front, but I've noticed in the past few years, even on their boards and committees, they've made a better effort at awarding educators beyond our borders, at having people on their board of directors from Mexico, from South America, from Europe. And so I think that also is a wonderful thing to help our industry grow, not just beyond our borders, but in recognition worldwide.
All right, Mr. Braithwaite, I'm going to take a slight turn on this. You and I were talking shortly before we started recording today. My CTS is up. My CTS is up. I got the same letter as Dawn. Mine is 9 years old, not because I'm younger than Dawn. I'm not. I'm actually slightly older, I think. But it actually ends up in, today is the 25th of November. It ends in 4 days, or 5 days. he and I were talking, and when I'm the same as Dawn, where when I took mine 9 years ago, it was online. I am at I am incentivized to re-up and get my RUs together, because then I don't have to go to Pearson and take the test. However, should that be the case, and the reason I'm saying that is, if I simply, and yes, I've got the 30 RUs you need because I've done certain classes over the last 3 years. I've taught a couple classes over the last 3 years. Should we, make folks every 3 years, or maybe every 5 years, sit down and take a test again. Make sure you do know what you're talking about, and you just haven't sat through some classes.
Well, I think that's an interesting comment. First of all, you just admitted you're going to be an undocumented CTS professional here in 4 days, so careful. But all jokes
I'll get
aside,
it in. Good Lord.
You do have a 30-day grace period.
Well, see, I've got 34 days then.
There you go. See, there's amnesty for you right there. But with that said, I will say one thing. The whole process of documenting, gathering your RUs, putting all that on a spreadsheet, on a piece of paper, on something like that, and people lose them and people forget them and people don't have them. And so I think you're actually among a lot of people who they had enough credits and enough continuing education to go to keep their certification, but they don't maybe have all the proof, or they don't have that. And so one of the things that we were discussing before we went on was, how come this isn't automated? How come this isn't part of the CTS professional database even, which CTS already has to hold?
Gonna interject there. There's actually a lot of these tools online now where if you do a manufacturer's training course, it does register you, and you just have to scan your certificate, but it registers that you were at that course and does do it all automatically in your CTS account. So this is done online. It's no longer just a personally held spreadsheet anymore. It is limited though. It's for the majority.
Is it by I'm sorry, Josh, real quick. Is it by manufacturer? Is it like on the onus on them to do that part?
Basically, they send it into InfoComm to let them know that you attended, is my understanding as to how it's been working lately. However, it is for the majority. Guys like me, who teach and volunteer and do all those other things, those credits do not get included in that. It is specifically for going to classes. So if you go to a lot of classes and that's how you're maintaining your CTS, that is done online. That can be done online entirely within your InfoComm account once you log into infocom.org and go through the process. So that's managed for you.
And I'll add, it's really easy if you go to your InfoComm account and log in. If it happens not to have automatically registered that I took a class at Clear One, for instance, but Michael sent me my certificate via email that I did attend the class and got the 1.5 RUs or whatever, all you have to do is log into your account, you pull down Clear One, you pull down the class name, and then it says, upload your certificate here. And you click the little button and it just, boom, it counts. So it's very easy to do.
Yeah, in fact, if you guys would like, I would be more than happy to show you mine at the moment if you want to let me share my screen, Tim.
Yeah.
So you can see how easy it is.
I don't know if I have a choice on whether or not you can share your screen.
But for those of you watching on YouTube, and I can just put this over here really quickly, and let me see if I can share my screen very quickly. Application window. There we go. So there you go. You can see how easy it is here. Your education history, and you can actually see the RUs that I've already earned. So mine's up in July, and I still need 3 more to renew my CTS.
You better get on that.
But yeah, so this just holds everything that I've been doing, and some of this stuff is volunteer work, and so like I said, some of these things you won't necessarily see, but like on here you don't see the fact that I sit on the certification steering committee. That's renewal units, so I've already made mine. Because that's a volunteer thing that I can't apply here. But these are they're trying to make it as easy as possibly can, but it tracks it. So here's 6.5, here's 4, and here's 4, and they're all for IoT Insights. Well, I was at it all 3 days, and I spoke at it all 3 days. So volunteer, attendance, like all those things that come up, those are things that just go. And then again, if you want to add a provider course because you don't see it there, simply go up here and you can see all the courses from all the manufacturers. You can, if I was to pick randomly just AMX for one, because A is fast. And then you see all the different courses that you can do, and then you can what date you completed it on, and then you can upload your certification of completion. So you just need to scan the certificate saying you were there.
Very cool.
So made it very, very easy to do this, but I just wanted to share that so that people knew it was there.
Very cool. Apparently, I just have to get online and just do that. So, all right. Up next from our friends over AV Network, why Made in America still matters. This is from the story that they're talking about is from Contemporary Research. I'm going to read a quote from this. By manufacturing in the U.S., Contemporary Research is able to achieve fast turnaround from concept to finished product while maintaining a firm grasp on quality control. The company makes small quantities of its products at a time, lending a boutique-style attention to detail within the company's sophisticated manufacturing facility. That's them. What I want to get to, and there are a number of manufacturers in AV specifically, and it feels like there's more than the tech industry at large. I could be wrong. But there's a lot of them that they manufacture in the U.S. Or most of the components, or they're put together in the U.S. What have you. Mike, I'm going to pick on you first because you're the manufacturer here. Does it matter? And when it comes down to brass tacks, does it matter where it's manufactured, or is it a marketing thing, or does it really matter at the bottom line?
Well, you'd have to almost separate that into a couple categories. Does it matter from the end user or potential client who's using this? It might matter greatly, especially for those that work on government projects and do specifications where it is specified that where it's manufactured. From a technology point of view, meaning is there an advantage? Is there a technological advantage of why it was? On some things, yes. I'll give an example. Large, like beamformer, speaker and microphone array type systems. The PCBs on those are very large if you look at what some of those arrays are. And offshore, which are great for, think of things like phones, or even set-top boxes or touchscreens and things like that, where the PCBs are small, lots of surface mount or ball grid array type chips on them. That's where the some of the offshore has some technological advantages. But when you get back to the size of something, those same companies that will do a great job with building a phone, for example, really don't have the capabilities to do large arrays of or large PCBs. If you have a PCB bigger than 20 inches, for example, most of those kind of companies can't even build those. So those, like from a Clear One point of view, for example, we build a whole line of Converge Pro DSPs. We have beamform microphones. Those are all made in the United States. And frankly, it's we can control the quality. But to be honest, there's a lot offshore that cannot do particular aspects of it. So, it depends on where you're coming from and what you're trying to do. As far as like the story itself, talking about Contemporary Research, it's a great company and really builds some fantastic projects. We do a lot of mutual things with them. I like the idea. I think that if we don't just pan it off as an excuse, we're trying to save costs. We're trying to save costs, we're going to offshore it. That's kind of a short-sighted notion, just because even though maybe you can save some in the materials, the fact that you're shipping back and forth, that you're managing different teams on different parts of the planet, different time zones, solving problems all the time. So you end up spending a lot of costs and all of that. So when you look at a company like Contemporary Research, they would spend more time with some of their offshoring than what they're doing right now. So I know that was a lot, but
No. That's why I'm asking. Dawn, she raised her hand when Mike started talking about government work. Net AV is in the heart of the Beltway, so they do a lot of government work. Does that matter, and how much does that matter, Dawn, when it comes to government work?
It matters immensely. It is of huge and utmost importance for any of our customers that are federal government, and some of our customers that aren't federal government but do work with the federal government. We're working on a project right now for one of the agencies nearby. It's a very large project, and I can tell you 2 months ago when we were working on the bid, frankly, it was a pain in the ass, because back in the day, we used to say, is it a U.S. company? Yes. Fantastic. Sign us up. We'll use that product. This job in particular, it wasn't, is it a U.S. company? They'd love it to be a U.S. company. That's great. But the important part is, where are the specific individual parts manufactured?
Oh, seriously?
So we didn't just have to say, we're buying this piece of equipment from this manufacturer. We had to say, or these products from this manufacturer. We had to, that is a U.S. company. We had to say, well, we're buying these products from this manufacturer, but these two products are offshored, and the country of origin of their offshoring is Singapore or Mexico. Or we had to identify the country of origin for each part that we were including. We had to include statements about whether or not the companies were part of there's some customs and enforcement regulation that has to do with how they ship products, that has to do with preventing human slavery and human trafficking.
Okay, yeah.
So there are human trafficking things. We had to have certifications on that. We had to have certain green certifications if they were offshored also, as to how they're manufactured to prevent depletion of ozone. Like, there were 50 little regulations that we had to confirm each and every product from each and every manufacturer, even if it was a U.S. company, and where they were made, and if they complied with this one, and did they comply with this one, and did they comply with this one. It took us literally a week and a half, 2 weeks. And that was the only part that was holding us up from immediately getting the contract. And once we got all that paperwork turned in, they just we'd already won the job, essentially. We just had to prove all. So it's tedious and it's incredibly difficult, but it is so important for federal. And this wasn't even like a secure or a classified job or anything. We didn't need any clearances for this job. This was just standard government office building.
Yeah, it's the government wanting to spend their money on their own people. Not to be pointed about it, but their own people, their own companies, the companies that are still here in the States.
Yes and no. There are so many regulations. It wasn't just about, is it a U.S. company and is the labor in the U.S.? It's, are we causing China to have problems in their groundwater contamination?
Okay.
Are we causing South America to have problems with ozone? Are we trafficking? Are we using a shipping? It's not even about the companies. It's about the companies that the companies use.
Wow.
Is the company that they're using to ship their product from their factory in China to L.A. adhering to trafficking rules, or do they have 50,000 illegals in the hold with the TV or whatever? So there are a lot of features in there that you really have to be concerned about when dealing with the government, that offshoring, it doesn't even help. And made in U.S., if you could just say it's made in Wisconsin, it's made in Texas in the case of contemporary research, it's made in Utah in the case maybe of Clearwater, I think maybe, or Oregon for that's gold in government. It tells us that we don't have to worry about the human trafficking. We don't have to worry about the as long as they're following federal law, we don't have to worry about any of the environmental concerns, and we don't have to worry about, unless there's something domestic, any spying issues. I mean, God love them. You know me, Tim. I love going to InfoComm. I love meeting with the little vendors, little 10 by 10 booths. Heck, contemporary research, I met them years ago at InfoComm when they were a 10 by 10. They were the hot sauce people because I got a bottle of hot sauce. It was their first year at InfoComm. Very exciting. But I was walking around last year at InfoComm, found a little 10 by 10 in the video conferencing UC pavilion. I was trying to give the little guys as much attention as the big guys. I walk, and there was not a soul in this booth. Felt bad for the 4 guys standing in it, working there. Went up and started talking to them, and 2 words in, I was like, guys, I hate to tell you, I can't even talk to you. Because God love them, they were a Moscow-based video conferencing company trying to break into the U.S. market. And it's like, you might have a great product and you might be great for a lot of corporate work, but I work federal government and I am not even sure I'm allowed to stand in your booth, frankly. So for us, yeah, it makes a big deal. And God love contemporary research and all the rest of you guys out there that are still all made in US, because you're our bread and butter. And it makes my job a lot harder if I can't use you.
All right, Josh, from not only Josh has 3 points of view on this, and the question is which one comes through. Josh used to work for a manufacturer who was not U.S. based. He used to be an integrator, and now he's a consultant. So, Mr. Srago, from all of those and all the other wonderful things going through your brain, does made in the U.S., and here's the other thing I want to point before I even say made in the U.S., understand that about 25% of our audience is outside of North America. So I'm going to say, does made in your home country make sense?
So here's the deal with made in U.S. And we're going to do this in a historical, chronological order for me. Starting when I worked for TOA, the most entertaining thing was we had products that would work under the Buy American Act, and we had products that wouldn't, depending on which factory we shipped it from. If it was made in one of our Japanese factories, no problem. If it was made in Singapore, Taiwan, or China, no, we could not use it under the Buy American Act. That created problems because then we had to know which literally I had to know which factory every single product was made in.
Holy cow.
TOA has upwards of 500 SKUs. So painful. And that was just audio product at the time, let alone the intercom product and the security products that we also offered outside the U.S. that we were trying to bring into the U.S. at the point in time. So there's one. Integrator. We didn't run into that so much here, but we did run into the same problems Dawn did. We did less government work, but we did a lot of other, there are the restrictions that come up with that we have to make sure that that's there. We have to do the research. We have to do our due diligence. The consultant may put something together. Where it came down to, and this only happened one time, but it did happen, which was the consultant specified something, and they also, that was not part of the Buy American Act, which, making it in your home country. Actually, backtracking one point because I forgot one. My favorite one is it doesn't have to be manufactured 100% in the U.S. to qualify for the Buy American Act. It just has to have certain components. So there is a mixer amplifier manufacturer out there who will make everything in China, ship it over, and then piece the last few things together in a state somewhere in the United States. And I'm going to try and be as vague as I can not to single this manufacturer out. And then they would stamp Made in America on it. And it technically qualifies based on how.
And here's the thing with that, and they're not that's not unique, right? And I've talked with several. No,
I'm not saying it's unique.
Hang on. I've talked with several manufacturers who are U.S. based to get around certain taxes and tariffs into Brazil. Is the perfect example because Brazil apparently has ginormous taxes and ginormous tariffs, like where a $100 component is going to end up costing the end user $500 or $600. They'll do the same thing. They'll ship everything and then ship the electronic the power components separate. Right, they'll put those together, connect the Edison plug, and then there it's manufactured quote unquote in Brazil.
So, and again, that's where it comes into play. From the integrator side, there's research. I have run into one instance where the Buy American Act was required. They had specified a product that did not qualify. And then we were forced to go through the justification saying that no other product out there would meet this need. Therefore, we had to be allowed to put it in because it was the only thing that did this. That's the due diligence. And that comes up on the consultant side as well. So it's who's going to eat the cost of that? And if a consultant didn't put enough money in to do that research, they force the integrator to do it because that's how it goes. Like, that's just how this rolls. If you're going to, the consultant's goal is to put together a system that will meet the needs of the client. And if they say that Buy American is required, then if they didn't put enough money to do that diligence up front, they can force it on the integrator after the fact. It's, how the game is played. That it's neither here nor there because both sides of it will end up doing it. And it's just because at the same time, once you do submittals, then the consultant has to go back and verify it. But rather than doing all the upfront research, the consultant can force somebody else to do that. So there's all these sides to the game as they come. Frankly, it is a good thing for the economy to have the jobs. It's a good thing for the economy to have employment. It's a good thing for the economy to support local businesses, be they manufacturers that work nationally or internationally, or just provide a service and solutions. Like, that's a good thing to support. But at the same time, it's so little of electronics are manufactured in the US by comparison. The comparative nature of scale as to where things are manufactured when it comes to electronic components and electronic devices, we are way down below my hand being on the screen, and my hand is almost touching the floor by comparison to China, Japan, South Korea. Let's tie this back to, think about how many products the entire Harman umbrella manufacturers in the US versus how many products Samsung manufactures in Korea. So, and not to mention what Samsung OEMs to everybody else that they make products for, being one of the 2 glass manufacturers on the planet. So there's all these things that come up with that. And yes, buying locally and trying to support your local economy and trying to support your local manufacturing is a good thing. But that doesn't mean you're always going to be capable of it. And that doesn't mean you're even going to be able to do it in certain instances at all. So there are problems and restrictions that come with that.
Understood.
Although I will say to Josh's point about, the number of SKUs produced, say, in South Korea by Samsung or whomever, that I think that's why the government has now gone from, is it a U.S. company? Great, check it off, you're hired, to tell us the country of origin of each part from each manufacturer, and do if the ones overseas, do they comply with these things? So they may be more cognizant of that fact nowadays than they used to be, and they're taking steps, to handle that, I guess.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry, one last thing is kind of a slight different take on this is that this same sentiment, as you know, I do lots of projects in China. It's a big country and lots of AV going on there, tremendous amount. And I'll tell you that they have the exact same program there where if it's not built in China, you can't use it in these big AV projects. And so what's interesting about that is let's say you take a device that is made in USA, you have a DSP and it's made in USA, and you're putting in a project in China. They will not let you put that project in many of those for the exact same reasons that this Made in America program is in place. So what happens is it's a shell game where now someone sets up something in China, products that are built in USA go over to China, just like what Josh was talking about. Most of the components are built in all over, but it's assembled in China, and then they can use it in those projects. And so it's kind of a weird thing, because if every country starts doing that, where every country is only using what's made in their country, that's a kind of a odd challenge that we're facing right now. And
you don't really get what those laws do or are aimed to do, right? Those jobs are aimed those laws are aimed to save the jobs in their home countries. But here's the thing: if they're doing things like we're talking about, like you said, the shell game, it doesn't accomplish that goal. It doesn't get to that end. It just makes manufacturers do a shell game, mark a couple of extra points on it. I saw a story the other day asking, it just in general, would you pay, I think it was $20 or $40 extra for your next iPhone if it was completely manufactured in the U.S., right? Because Mr. Cook is, Tim Cook from the head of Apple, is looking at bringing those manufacturers, that manufacturing facility back here. I want to say it was New Mexico is one of the sites that they were slated for that. And it's a legitimate question. Right? Would you pay an extra $40 for an iPhone? I don't know. I mean, the U.S. is unique when it comes to their cell carriers and how contracts are written, and the fact that we really don't see the true cost of our cell phones as opposed to over in Europe, for example. So it was kind of a non sequitur question to me because, we don't really see the cost, right? So sure, absolutely. What the heck? Make the iPhones here. It would give them an advantage maybe in the government market as opposed to the Samsungs, as long as they don't blow up like the Notes. Anyhow, we were going to do a story. We are at the 30-minute mark. We are not going to do that story. However, I am going to post it. I will put it up here. I will mention said story. The fact that apparently one of President-elect Trump's transition people that is going to be transitioning and looking at the FCC wrote a blog post about a month ago saying, quote unquote, we don't need the FCC. So here's what I'm going to propose to Mr. Srago, because he and I have slightly differing sides of this. Let's write some competing posts on this the next week.
Why do you feel like being destroyed in the written word?
Because it's easier for you. And reading the story a little bit more, because like I said, Srago dropped this on me like right before we came on. The guy's a little bit out of his mind. The fact that quote unquote, the one I was going to read was, most of the original innovations for the FCC have gone away. Telecommunications network providers and ISPs are rarely, if ever, monopolies. Except for the fact that that's not true. So, I may actually be on your side, Josh. So,
to be fair, let's remember this guy was a telecom lobbyist for either Verizon or Sprint. I can't remember which one.
All right. Well, just talking about cable or just talking about internet access in general, they're, if not monopolies, they're duopolies. So,
I'm sure they're going to deny that they are a monopoly. I mean,
of course they are. Just like AT&T is no longer a monopoly because they were broken up 100 years ago, except for that they slowly but surely got back together, and now they're something. All right, we'll post this story. We'll encourage comments on it. Josh and I will write some pieces over the next week. So thank you all so much. Mr. Braithwaite, how do people find you and or Clear One?
Thank you very much. Please find me at www.clearone.com. Also, if you're going to ISC, I'll put out a little advance notice there that on the 8th, that would be February 8th, 12 o'clock, I have a session there that's called How Video DSP Nodes Expand Audio and Video over IP Without Any Legacy Processors, Video Wall Processors, Multi-Image Processors. So it's a cool class if you want to find out how to do some cool video walls and multi-imaging. Stop by there at ISC on the 8th.
And you get RUs for that, right?
You get RUs for that. That's correct.
That's what you call a tie back there, kids. All right. Also, Miss Dawn Meade, thank you, ma'am.
thank you. I was already jealous that I can't go to ISC, and now I'm even more jealous because that sounds like a cool class I'd like to take. You can find me online. My company is NetAV, net-av.com. You can find me, of course, on AVNation and various places on the internet at AVDawn. Oh, and our most recent AV Social just recently hit the air, or whatever we call it these days. So if you want to hear Tim and I and Miss Kelly Perkins talking about the recent election and how marketing and social media did or did not play a role in the results that you may or may not enjoy, check out the show. I think we had a good time talking about it, and hopefully you have a good time listening to it.
Yeah, and a number of stories have actually come out since then talking about people burning their reputations to the ground in the aftermath. All right, Mr. Srago, how do people find you?
Well, you can reach me on Twitter at JSRAGO. You can find me at AVNation, Josh at AVNation.tv. You can also find me at Teecom. Yeah, I have that day job thing too. Mm-hmm. So Teecom.com, consulting firm in the Bay Area, but also working worldwide to support our clients. And then, of course, the long lost but not forgotten soundreason.org if you want to keep up with me. So if there are many ways to find me, track me, and you'll see me talking and writing and focusing a lot right now on the transition as we grow ever more concerned about the future of tech policy and our ability to continue to do our jobs, what with a very quiet industry when it comes to supporting us publicly for what we're doing right now in terms of where the government policy is going and what we're doing. So stay tuned to AVNation to try and get some as unbiased reporting as possible, but definitely informative posting on tech policy.
And some other things that Josh and the entire AVNation crew is doing is we're working with the EFF on some things as well. So that's coming down the pipeline. So check that out. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me on Twitter. At this point in the American football season, I'm lamenting the fact that we have a horrible quarterback. But go by the website if you would, please. You'll find this program, a host of others. Dawn mentioned the brand new AV Social. We have a brand new State of Control that came out, a brand new EdTech that came out. Every week we also do a residential version of AVWeek. We call it Resi Week, where they look at the home AV market. That is all happening at AVNation.tv. Also, this week, if you're a manufacturer or you just have a favorite product or education or service that you think was phenomenal in 2016, we have launched our inaugural AVNation Awards, totally driven by you, the listener and the reader. So this is the nomination process. It ends at the end of November. Then we're going to turn right around and by Friday have the actual voting. That'll happen in December. Again, all you guys. So check that out if you would be. Please, all of it at AVNation, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.